Blake, did you know the term grounded?
Yes, I'm very aware, sadly.
Did you get grounded very often as a teenager?
If only I could count that high.
Welcome to the ChurchGear podcast, where we pull the tech director out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm Blake Hodges, and I'm here with my co-host and boss of the year, Toby Walters.
Okay, so like all of us, I got grounded as a teenager. And I mean, if you ask me, it was all for stupid reasons. Like my parents, they asked me to do things and I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to do it because what you're asking is ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like your kids listen to you, so why should you listen to your parents?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
well,
what a kid is
my
about.
kids listen to me because all my demands are reasonable
Oh, sure, 100%.
and obvious,
But your parents, they were all 0% obvious.
100% true.
100%.
So there was this one moment, I was 16 or 17 years old, and I was mowing the lawn because that was one of my chores. Did you have to mow the lawn?
I did. I actually loved mowing the lawn. It's the only manly thing in my entire life I can claim I did.
I can imagine. So I was mowing the lawn, and this is like old school. You had the bag on the back of the push mower, and it fills up with the grass that you mow. So at the end of the mow, I push the mower back into the garage, and I've done this a number of times. And, mother says, empty the bag of grass into the trash can.
Yeah, I never had to empty the bag.
And
I know,
isn't that dad's job? Like,
Yeah.
I mow the lawn, he empties the bag, right? So it was, and I'm sorry I'm talking about a bag of grass here. I know we're just dancing around. Let's just get it out in the open. I'm not talking about that kind of bag of grass. I'm talking about this kind of bag of grass.
that would be
Okay.
a very big bag of grass
Yes.
to be attached to a lawnmower.
So this was probably the it's called the sixth, because I don't know how to say that term. The sixth time that I didn't empty the bag into the trash can, and mom was finally fed up. So she says, you are grounded for a week. And I'm like, does the punishment fit the crime? Like, what do you think about that? Like, that's way too much.
Well, it was the sixth time on the bag. There's 7 days in a week. So yeah, you had at least one more time before you got
take
the
my
full
mom's
week.
side on this.
No, I'm taking yours. I'm saying she jumped the gun too soon.
So, and back in those days, I mean, I came up in an extremely rigid, strict Christian household. So I wasn't allowed to do much. So they were grounding me from youth group.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I couldn't go to youth group. And I loved youth group because I was not cool at school, but at youth group at my small Baptist church, I was like king of the castle.
In the village of the blind, the one-eyed man is king.
That's right. So I developed a plan. This was on Saturday. And they said, the first youth group event was the next day, Sunday afternoon, we're having a pool party. And I'm like, this is tragic. So I thought, like, is there something I can do? Like, there was a little lawyer in me back at that point. So I thought, what could I do? And we were at a very small Baptist church. We were like maybe 150 people. And my grandparents literally helped build the church building. So like we had family history there. So at that time, my youth pastor was also the executive pastor, was also the music director, and he did announcements in the service.
He had too many hats to even put on a hat rack at
That's
this
right.
point.
He was probably the tech director too, because we didn't have one of those because we're a little church.
And I hear that's very easy to do.
Yes. So I went to him and I had a plan hatched in my mind, and I presented it to him, and his response was basically, yeah, why not? So comes service time, service starts. I think there's one opening song, and then that's when this pastor would get up and do announcements. But this time I got up and did announcements.
I'm so scared for what's about to happen.
So he gave me the, 3 announcements we had, seniors ministries meeting Wednesday morning at this location. Attendance was this last week, whatever it was. And then I said, but I've got a grave issue that I need to bring before the church, a grave sin issue to bring before the congregation.
You're about to put your whole parents on blast in front of the church.
It's exactly what I'm doing. So
Oh, no.
I opened up with the Bible passage of the Bible says, when someone sins, 2 or more people, or you go to them and you rebuke them, and if they don't listen, 2 or more people should go and rebuke them. And if they don't listen, you take them in front of the church and you excommunicate them. You kick them out because they're sinners. So why are you shaking your head?
I'm
this
just
is perfectly logical.
I'm so terrified for what is coming to you. Even though this is in the past, you're still alive presently. I'm like, past Toby's somehow going to die in this story.
So I present that passage, and then I also present the passage of parents do not exasperate your children. And I presented my case saying that, does the punishment fit the crime in this situation? I didn't say bag of grass at the front of the church, but I said, now I'm grounded from church youth group. Is that right? And thankfully, because my family has such a history, so I put it to a church vote. This is a Baptist church. We like to vote on things. We vote and then we do chili cook-off.
Yep. Baptist America right there.
So I put it to a church vote. And again, like family history. So like my family's there, my parents, obviously, my siblings, my aunt and uncle, and my grandparents. And out of the crowd, my grandma shouts, "Let Toby go."
Oh, you got grandma. You won. That's the only vote that really mattered in that crowd.
So grandma was on my side, and the church did vote, and I think it was pretty much a split decision. But at the end of the day, actually after church, my mom was like, well, that was a good shot. She's like, I'm going to give you a compromise. If you want to go to the youth group thing today, you can't go to youth group on Wednesday night. And so I said, sold. I wanted that pool party.
There we go. Well, and I can only imagine why. So at this point,
so take your case before the church, no matter how frivolous it is, that's where it's supposed to go.
Just get church board approval. And next time, make sure you film it and send it to us.
Advantages of small churches.
Yes. Well, at this point, I would like to bring in a guest and see if he's got any grievances
against his parents
or the many people he has seen in life. This man has so many accolades. It's going to be tough to get to them all.
I think you need to take a nap before you list all these accolades. This is ridiculous.
I took a nap right after I read them, actually.
Yeah.
At his house. All right, so this guy has been the lighting director for John Mayer for 12 years.
And are all of these true, or is he like...
One of these is definitely a lie, but the fact is, I'm shocked it's not like one's true and the rest are lies. He's been the lighting director for Keith Urban for 6 years, the chief creative and partner at Darkroom Creative. Through that Darkroom, he's been the designer for the Doobie Brothers, Barry Manilow, Lauren Daigle, Toby Keith, the Crossing at Chesterfield, and Richard Simmons.
Oh, Richard Simmons.
I present to you Nathan Alves. Nathan.
Sorry.
Wake up and join us, Nathan.
Hi, guys. What's going on?
Nathan, I'm so glad you're here.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
You look lovely. I love the scarf. I love the sweater.
You're welcome.
Your fashion's so on point.
Put on my finest attire to not work from home today.
You have a face for radio, so this is perfect.
Thank you.
Hard disagree on this end. So now,
Nathan, did you ever get grounded as a teenager?
Yeah, all the time.
All the time. Was it for nonsense, or were you like really hitting that?
So I grew up in a very traditional Christian home. And by traditional, I mean militaristic almost.
Okay.
I was grounded for everything. I was grounded for listening to bad CDs. I was grounded for listening to watching things I wasn't supposed to watch. But the weird part about that is like you, because that's the family of origin I come out of. I was a little awkward everywhere else in life. So grounding me didn't really do a lot because I didn't do a lot to begin with. I'm in my room drawing pictures. You want me to stay in my room and draw more pictures? Sure.
You have to draw more appropriate pictures now.
Right?
Only pictures of Jesus this month.
Only pictures of Jesus this month. But yeah, no, I was grounded all the time. All the time.
Were you ever grounded for lying? Because apparently you just lied in this list of accolades.
I did lie in that list of accolades. There is something in there that is not accurate.
So Blake and I have to figure this out. And Blake and I have known you for a while, so...
Yeah, this is going to be... tougher and easier, I guess, because we were in that small group for 2 years. So I feel like I've heard a lot of these stories.
I mean, we know about John Mayer. Let's just take it off the table. We know he's worked with John Mayer. We know Keith Urban.
Yes.
Yep. So then, and I know, unless he changed the name of his company, which I would feel like a bad friend if I don't catch that.
No, I know that one.
I feel like, Darkroom Creative. Yeah, that's correct. So
I have a guess, and I think...
All right, if you already got your guess, let me get mine first, too, so I'm not jaded.
And I'm wondering if you know who my guess is, even. Because, I mean, again, to our listening audience, Blake is like 12 years old, at least in his
my music
pop
choice.
culture references.
Yeah, so I think I've got mine. I'm going to go first. I'm going to say that the lie is in that long list at the very end that you've been a designer for lighting. I'm going to say Richard Simmons is the lie. That's
And who
guess.
is Richard Simmons?
I have no idea, but
man.
I know that name is the name, and that's
Richard Simmons is like, he was big. I mean, he's big for a long time, but in the 80s, he was like the exercise guru. He was the
Dancing to the oldies, man.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Who's the Biggest Loser lady that everybody's scared of? The Jillian Michaels.
Jillian Michaels.
He's
he
like
was the
80s
Jillian Michaels when I was 9 years old.
Yeah, he'd wear these like blue
ridiculously
and purple
short
tights. He had a fro,
shorts.
a curly fro.
And he did not, the body grooming did not exist in the 80s. I mean, this is a new thing. All right. So for anybody, Toby and I are almost the same age. We didn't body groom in the 80s. Like men just walked around. If they were big Barry men, they just walked around looking like they just got out of the woods. So he would do exercise videos and send them out. And no, I'd never worked for him.
Okay.
Yep, that was going to be my guess as well.
All right.
Richard Simmons, you are extremely unlucky to have never worked with Nathan Alves.
I know. I would. Is he still alive?
I think so.
Oh, I don't want to break that on the podcast.
Can we target this? Like,
Blake, Google this. Is Richard Simmons still alive?
I will buy gear from you guys, and we will design a show for Richard Simmons.
Oh man, Richard, we're coming.
Oh my goodness.
It's gonna be
a traveling theater show.
Well, now that we've gone through that long list, I'm like, man, let's get some backstory. So it's so long, I don't even know where to begin on all the people you've worked with. So like, just tell us about some of the favorite times you've had.
Do you have like a favorite tour or a
Cliff
favorite
Notes
show?
version of
I'm scared to put him on like picking his favorite tour, because that's like picking a favorite child, right?
They're all they're all different. Asking the biggest challenge or what was your favorite tour or any of those questions. I liken it to, and you have kids, right? So it's like pregnancy. Every pregnancy is different.
Yeah.
So
and every child's different.
And
Some of them
every
are
kid is
duds.
different.
One of my two kids, total dud.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I won't
there's
say which one.
There's the one that you hate for like 2 years and then you start to like them.
That's true.
Yeah.
And then you start.
That same thing happens.
I mean,
with us.
hate. One of my children is right above this floor right now, so I won't say I hate any.
Oh,
of my
can they
children,
hear us
but
right now?
I doubt it, but
Okay, good.
Hate might be a
we'll keep going on this
strong word.
analogy then. No, there's every tour is different. Some tours you're gone for 12 months, and so on month 11, and you've been doing the same thing for 12 months for the same artist who they're all particular, and some of them can be difficult, some of them can be sweethearts, but there's always something that kind of rubs you the wrong way on month 11, and
sure.
You haven't seen your wife, and you sleep in a bunk that's about the size of the table we're in front of, which is not that big.
You're really selling the kids on this touring thing.
Yeah, no, they just get incredibly difficult, and you're just cranky and angry, and you don't like what you're doing for a living. And then month 12 happens, and you say goodbye to your friends, and about 6 months later, you're sitting at home, and an advertisement for the next tour comes on television, and they're using some art that you made, and you're like, wow, that was really fun. And I went to Amsterdam and Paris and London and Tokyo and Sydney, Australia, and I got to experience that with some of my best friends, and somebody else paid for it. So yeah, it's hard to kind of put a button on which one's the best one.
Yeah.
They're all in hindsight, they're all amazing.
So you're a creative director, lighting designer. So you create all the visual elements in
Stuff
a live
that people see.
production
Yeah.
that's coming from lights, screens.
Set elements. We design entire stages sometimes.
So are you like, do you design all this ahead of time and then just like press a button and it goes? Or are you like, just like the mix engineer, you are mixing a live production of
It
lights
depends
and
on the
elements
tour.
and
So, I mean, like we said, I was John's LD for 12 years. John plays a different set list every night of the week. So you never get two shows that are identical back to back with
When
him.
do you find out about this set list?
Sometimes we'll get them an hour before the show starts.
And you have to design a whole show within an hour?
Well, we don't. We try to design this thing like it's basically we build blocks and chunks. At least when I'm laying out my consoles, I'll build like chunks and blocks of a sequence, and I'll say, okay, we're going to take this piece and put it here, and then I'll slide this piece over here, and then we'll kind of lay out a 2-hour performance that way. And that was the way to keep his show from looking the same every night. Because the marching orders, at least when I started there in 2009, were he doesn't want to see the same thing every night of the week. So
Wow, that's a lot of pressure on all that variety.
Yeah, well, and it was funny because we would, as the tours would progress, the set list started coming in later and later. I remember on one specific tour, the first day we got our set list at like 10 o'clock in the morning. I was like, man, he's really looking out for me today. And then slowly, as everybody got more comfortable, it started almost becoming a game. I'm like, I wonder when we're going to get it today. And there were a couple nights where we would get the first half of the show, and then we would do an intermission. And so during intermission, we would get the second half of the show.
So then, like, what is it like living on that amount of adrenaline while trying to, I mean, you're a professional, like, you really care about this craft. So there seems to be this balance of, like, prepare, but then also, I just got to do it. So, I mean, at that point, are you running on instincts, muscle memory? How are you keeping a calm head?
Well, one, when you're done, you sleep for like 3 days. So when you come home from a tour, you literally collapse. I have friends who, like, we're like, yeah, let's go to get dinner when we get home. We live in the same town. And then, next thing you know, it's like 48 hours later. And I'm like, hey, were we supposed to meet up yesterday? Like, just exceptionally tired. But yeah, you basically become singularly task focused. Touring is exceptionally hard on your spouse, your partner, whoever that is, because the entire emotional burden of running your household transfers to them. They become kind of practically single while you're out, especially if you're on there's different models of touring. There's kind of the Nashville model right now, which is you leave home on Wednesday and you come home on Sunday. And that kind of works because you get 3 days to catch up on, your home life, and you get to help your spouse or your partner when you're back home. And then there's kind of that traditional pop touring model where you leave home for 4 to 6 weeks at a time. And if you're on that model, that means that for a solid month, your partner is doing all of the work of like managing your family and your household. They're paying all the bills. And so that's the only way you can functionally get what you need done in the course of a day, because we show up to some of these venues with 13 to 18 semi trucks full of production equipment.
That's a lot.
The day starts at 7 o'clock in the morning. The concert's at roughly 9 p.m. 7 p.m. you start your openers. You usually put your artist on stage for a sound check in between 3 and 4. So, which means that to give yourself time for things to break, because things always break.
We've never had anything break.
Things always break. There's always something that's
our lie.
held together by like Scotch tape. In the touring world, there's always something held together by Scotch tape and twine.
Does it just keep getting worse as the tour goes on and on? Like,
well, yeah, because we put things in. I mean, imagine build something out of glass, put it in the passenger seat of your car, and then drive 500 miles. And then stop, take it out, show it to like 5,000 people, put it back in your car, drive another 500 miles. And then by the time you get to like the fourth city, you're like, I don't know how this is still working, but it is. So nobody touch anything. But yeah, so it's a difficult strain we put on our spouses, but that's the only way we can get it done. Those days are exceptionally long. You're starting at 7 o'clock in the morning. You're trying to be done at 2 in the afternoon, and you just don't stop.
So when pregame for a tour, so John comes to you and says, "Hey, we're going on tour." Keith Urban, these are guys that are of the accolades that like. They get whatever they want, I assume. I mean, they can't spend $1 billion, but like if they have a vision in their mind, it's going to be done. Mm-hmm. What are some of the most fun things that you've had to figure out how to make happen?
So John's tour producer came to us recently. The last thing I did for him, we built they had this idea. They sent us an animatic for a shadow box that was life size, and the kind of concept drawings we got and the mood board we got showed a bunch of kind of 8.5 by 11 cardboard shadow boxes, and they wanted to make that, but in a scale that was 12 feet tall by 36 feet wide. How do we light this so that it still kind of creates that kind of shadow play and that kind of interaction between all the elements? So that was a fun one. When I was the lighting director for Keith Urban, we did a tour where we literally picked the video walls up. We had 5 video walls. Mark Bickman was the production designer, and he came up with this show where the walls would pick up, they'd go completely flat over top of the band, and then they'd come down and create a club roof.
Oh.
So the engineering for that was incredibly fun, and figuring out how to light around that with him was super interesting. I did a show for Cat Stevens a couple years ago, where he wanted the stage to feel like it was the attic of his parents' house when he was growing up in London. So coming up with that one was fun, and I remember sitting in the production office, and every couple of days he would show up with I had this record when I was a kid. Someone find one for me. So we were ordering records off Amazon to dress the set, and our production manager was handling all of that. It was an incredibly intricate piece of work. There's a PBS special on that one, and you can watch it, and there's all these like little Easter eggs all over the place, like posters for the original run of West Side Story, and very old Cat Stevens records, and just old guitars, and the tea kettle from Tea for the Tillerman, and all this other stuff.
I'm just imagining the attic in the Goonies. Yeah,
pretty much.
They're looking at all the treasure stuff, and
yeah.
Hey, Mikey, come give me a big wet liquor kiss.
Yes.
Again, Blake, you ever seen the Goonies?
Nope, I'm saving that one.
Gosh.
I quit. I'm done.
So then what happened to all those? Did those Easter eggs go home? Did you take a souvenir? Does he now have a whole set at his house from that tour?
I don't know what happened to that one. So I cycled onto another tour before that tour ended, and they went to kind of Pacific Rim, Australia, Japan, part of the world-ish, and they took all that stuff with them. So I don't know what happened to any of those pieces.
So then when you're working with an artist, like we're talking about the moment the show is happening and the chaos, but there's all this process I would assume that happens before that. Like what program are you using when you're making the set ahead of time? What's your process? Like how is that going? Because I would assume you have to have a good bit of the prep work ahead of time when you're lighting the show before you get to the moment, so you know how to do everything so quickly.
We start, so Darkroom's process takes about 6 months to build a full-size arena tour. So we normally get a phone call anywhere from 6 to 8 months before an artist goes out. We'll start with a series of sketches. We like to work in as accurate of a space as possible, so we go straight into, we don't do paper sketches. We go straight into kind of 3D modeling and 3D rendering and some kind of visualization software programs that we use. We work in Vectorworks, which all your church lighting guys are going to be super familiar with. And then our renders, we go out of Vectorworks to render in Cinema 4D, which we also use to make a lot of the video content you see on screens. So it's kind of a natural transition for us. We do a thing called pre-visualization, which is where you light things without actually having to build anything. So we use a software package called Vision for that. It's a plugin to Vectorworks, and it allows us to basically take a lighting console and plug it into a computer and see what our show's going to look like before we rent anything.
That sounds very helpful.
It's incredibly
I've used
helpful.
iPhoto. Is that
Yes, it's exactly how that works.
like Microsoft Draw? Like
Yep.
I'm basically qualified now to build shows for
You're
for
hired.
A-list artists.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Well, all right.
Blake knows what a lighting board is.
Those are actually my favorite boards that we sell. They're very fun.
Nate, do you have a favorite live console that you use? I mean, Blake knows who Grandma is.
Yeah.
Dude, I just love that that's a name.
So we're funny enough. We currently drive almost every show that we put out on Grandma 2. Some flavor of that platform.
Now, tell us, does if anybody says Grandma, do lighting directors look at each other and be like, noob?
We
Because it's spelled Grandma.
don't really care. We don't really care that much. I had an older lighting director years ago when I worked at a lighting warehouse. He used to change all his to Grandpa.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Grandpa one. No, I've been an MA lighting guy since the original Grand MA. So they're just easy for me to work with. So I tend to stay with them.
We've got some original Grandma MAs.
Do you really?
We got an ultralight. We've got the actual
the actual full size one
Yep.
with the 3 screens. Wow.
yeah.
I haven't
So
seen one
if
of those
you
in a
want
while.
to like go back in time,
Go back in time.
come
go
on
back,
over to our
Go back
warehouse.
to
and-
Keith Urban circa 2007.
Toby, did you not know I gave that board to him in exchange for doing the episode today?
Yes.
Oh, Blake,
I should
what are you
probably
doing?
have mentioned that.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it's only worth like $30 at this point.
It's worth more than 30. Come on.
Depends on who needs it. We should probably mention that you were a church tech director for a time too. Like, let's rewind a little bit. Now we've got all this crazy
Well,
stuff.
I wasn't a tech director, but I was a technician. My first job officially as a lighting technician was at Calvary Assembly of God in Winter Park, Florida. So
Okay, is that the giant like glass building
off of I-4 as you're going
off
north.
of I-4? We've been there.
Yeah. So Calvary is they're a 5,600 seat auditorium, and at the time they had a couple satellite rooms that were pretty well lit, and I started out as a lighting and sound technician. I honestly started out when I was a teenager volunteering there.
That's what I was getting at. I was waiting for the moment where this actually all started because you were volunteering somewhere at the church, because that seems to be the
Yep.
story of, I can't say all, but almost all.
My business
people.
partner started volunteering at his church. And he ended up doing what he did because he went to Verilight when Verilight was the place you went to get moving lights. And he rented some lights and he sent them back working. And they were like, wait a minute, who fixed these? And he was like, I did. And that's how he got his first job in the industry.
Can he fix our lights? We have
mountains
of moving lights that
pull him out of technician retirement to come down here.
Absolutely.
I was going to say, that sounds familiar. We have hired a couple people that way as well. They fixed one thing. We're like, can you stay forever, please?
Yeah, please don't leave.
Okay, so you got your start in church. Did that kind of like spark the interest, like getting involved in the production department at the church?
Yeah. So I, one of my friends in high school, he helped with the technical department.
And you grew up in Orlando, like that was home for you?
Yeah, that was home for me. And I just, I liked, there were a couple of kids, and I think some of them still work there or still do work for them. But I wanted to hang out with them, and to hang out with them meant you were going to hang out with the tech guys. And so I was like, all right, let's get into this. And, bought a multi-tool and started learning how to coil cable. And, they taught me how to mix sound for the first time. And those guys were the first place I did lights and, focused park hands and moved really heavy things around for the Christmas production and the Easter production when we would rent outside gear and bring in outside designers. That was the first place I met a Verilight guy, which for people who don't know, Verilight at the time was that was the end all be all of moving lights. Like if you had a Verilight system, you were crushing it. You were Disney.
We've got some Verilights in the warehouse.
Yeah.
And they weigh like 4,000 pounds.
Yeah, they're heavy.
Does that mean the warehouse is now Disneyland?
Yes.
That's what I just heard.
Yes.
To the right, technically.
You are required to wear ears to work from now on.
Oh, man. Oh, boy. Well, then all these people you're out on the road with, are a lot of them former like church people? That's where they got their start? Because I would imagine that's the on-ramp for a lot of people.
It's the on-ramp for a lot of people. You come up in one of many categories. So in my age range, it was a little rare for you to be kind of church bred. It was really common for you to be come from like the club world. You would start off at like a dive bar and you'd move into a club that had a bigger stage. Then you'd end up on a tour bus, and that's how you went on tour. Church technology and just kind of the presentation of houses of worship has gotten so more technologically advanced just in the amount of time I've been in the industry, that now we're seeing a large group of people come out of church world and transition into touring and a kind of secular pop acts and rock and roll acts. It's kind of a great breeding ground because you have this controlled environment where people can learn how to use advanced technology, that same stuff we use on a large format tour, but it never moves. So you can really kind of, build this nice little sandbox and say, all right, here's why we do the things that we do and how we do the things that we do.
Okay, Nate. When I was growing up, teenager, like I got my start in church and audio production, like recording engineering, that was my dream. So I'd be sitting having dinner and reading Mix Magazine.
Yes.
And every Mix Magazine, there would always be an ad for Full Sail University.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm on the other side of the country, so this is like my version of like Disneyland is over here, Full Sail University. Mm-hmm. And you went to Full Sail.
I did.
So is a kid like me dreaming about Full Sail, is that sort of am I imagining the right place, or is it like once you're there, you kind of settle in and it's just a place, like it's got pros and cons?
You're imagining the right place. Anywhere has pros and cons, but you are imagining the right place. Some of the people I met at Full Sail, I still work with today. We give each other work. Some of the connections I made there colored the way I view the business today and how I get new clients and just the type of businessman and technician and designer that I became. But most importantly, it's a great place if you don't have, there's kind of two ways you can get into this, right? You know somebody or you go to school for it. And if you don't know what to do and you want to do this for a living, if you watch a concert on television or if you go to church on Sunday and you look up at the lights more than you look at the stage, Full Sail is a great place to go and learn how to do those things. And it gives you kind of this great kind of stepping off point. After that, it's on you. The humility to get your first job and to show up willing to work and learn, that's on you. Full Sail can't do that for you. You can't skip steps on this ladder. Everybody starts at the bottom, but if you're willing to do the work, Full Sail is a great place to learn some of the technical skills that you need to get started.
So if you come out of Full Sail, I assume Orlando is just saturated with production people because Full Sail is producing them at a high clip. If you come out of Full Sail, would it be wise to maybe pick a different city where there's a little less saturation in the production world?
Sure. I mean, if you come out of Full Sail, I think it's wise for you just to get a job wherever you can get a job. Start doing something. You know, a friend of mine asked me to talk to a young woman who was graduating from Savannah College of Art recently, and you know, how it's the beginning of the pandemic. So nobody knows what's about to happen. In our world, everything stopped for 18 months shortly after I sent this email. But she wanted to know kind of what to do next. You know, she was a senior in college. Like, what do I do next? I want to be a designer. And kind of the answer is just make stuff. You know, design great, big, incredible things that no one will ever see because you're not designing for anybody right now. And then design really little things that maybe some people will see because you can sell them to somebody. Or, you know, and somewhere in the middle, but just do it because you have this thing inside you that needs to get drawn. As opposed to building, you know, waiting for somebody to hire you and pay you money to do these things. If you treat it like art, it tends to work better, I find, than if you treat it like something that has to be sold to someone.
Blake definitely like creates big, incredible things that nobody should ever see.
No.
Yeah.
It's shocking in its horrificness.
The floors of my office are pages of
You gave him an office? Hang
it's
on.
like-
Pause. You gave him an office?
Oh no, I built an office in my house.
I gave him the closet in the bathroom as his office.
So I built an office in my house. The pages of all of my shot down ideas litter the floor of that room, but you know, it makes for good kindling in the fire. So
I mean, you're doing what Nathan asked you to do. You're creating things.
Exactly.
And nobody's ever going to see them. They're nonsense. They're like finger paintings of a madman.
one could say that I'm in the thing that has been created, though, in this moment, in a meta moment.
Well, you know what you should do is you should just, you know, like put it on the fridge next to the stuff your kids make.
That's a good idea. Blake did this.
And that way he can see it every time he comes over and
Yeah.
just feel proud of the
Yes.
body of work that he's done.
You think
Yes.
I can compete against the kids? Well, he did say he already had a favorite kid, and the other one he didn't. So maybe I can
And it's not you, Blake.
Maybe I can go for second, you know? So then you've got this church world background, or that's where you got your start. You've got millions of years in the...
Millions? How old are you?
Listen,
I'm 38, and I started doing this, if you count the volunteering years, when I was about 14, 15. So not millions
So a
of
million years is
but
about right.
yeah.
this is like dog years, though. A year on a tour, like all of that experience is like a billion years of experience. So tell us like the difference between being on tour with, you know, the stars and then like working at the church. Like how do those overlap? They're the same like discipline, but they're just wildly different settings.
Well, functionally, for like I'd say 98% of the staff on a tour, there's very little distinction between what you would do at the church and what you would do on tour. The vast majority of people don't travel with an artist on tour. We don't. You don't wake up in a 5-star hotel. You wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning and you're on a tour bus outside and you walk into an empty room and you start putting lights in the air and speakers and building stages. The one difference would be that, you know, we have to assemble everything every day now. When I worked at the church, you would walk in and you'd kind of warm up the room. You know, you turn stuff on, you walk around, you make sure it's clean. Set some microphones up, you know, kind of who's in the band today, you know, it's okay, bass player, this guy likes to be over here, so I'm going to move him to the right.
Don't forget to mute Brenda's mic.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like this person doesn't sing very loud, but I know he will once the service starts, you know, so we're going to start a little high and we'll come back down. That doesn't happen on tour. We just go to town. It's a completely empty room. It's a concrete floor with 10,000 seats in front of it, and you just start putting stuff in the air. Truss comes in first, motors, and then everything else after that.
Give us one of your favorite touring moments where like all hell broke loose.
Oh man. Well, we hide it really well, so it's really hard for all hell to break loose.
Even if it's only breaking loose in your head. I mean, that's the place that you live and it's going crazy.
There have been all sorts of days. All right, so Grand MA 1 story.
Okay.
The original Grand MA. So those were the first consoles that I would link together when I was operating a show. So you could link other consoles together, but it wasn't a great tracking system, and you'd have to have switches and things. And the Grand MA Series 1 was kind of the first desk that I started running Ethernet cables back and forth from. And so you'd move a fader on one console, and the fader on the other console would move, and they'd be fully tracking. So in case anything went wrong, there's another console right here you could just step onto. What happened was the way that system worked, the mouse input because it's basically a computer, right? So so the mouse input tracked between both consoles as well. So I have a console behind me to my left that's covered, and we're starting a concert, and this thing is 90% of the house is there, like 14,000 kids. It's loud, big kablam moment. Now I pushed one button at the big kapow moment, and it turned on 80 lights, and spotlights happened, and the video wall explodes in color, and all of this is supposed to happen at once. And I pushed the button, and absolutely nothing happened.
Oh no.
And I push the button again, and I'm looking at the screen, and there's a cue list in front of me, and I push the button again, and absolutely nothing happens. And I, for the life of me, can't figure out what's going wrong. And I start, moving the faders up and down, and I look to my left, and I don't see anything wrong. And I look to my left again, and on the spare console, front of house has lots of screens. People are interested. They kind of want to see what's going on over there. And an audience member to my left had leaned over the console to kind of see what I do for a living and was holding a beer over the lip of the touchscreen. And the bottom of her beer was just barely resting on the screen, which on that console registers as mouse down, left button down. And until left button unclicks, the rest of the face panel doesn't do anything. So I'm just sitting
ma'am.
there. I'm pushing every button I can, and I'm looking at the artist, and he's kind of, he's playing a guitar, and he's kind of looking at me. He's like, "What's going on here?" And I'm just like, frantically giving the panic signal with my hands, and I don't know what to do. And I look over, and I just see this beer kind of resting. I just kind of lean over, and I pick it up with one finger, and all of a sudden 5 cues fire at once, and the show picks back up, and we go back, and I'm like, "Can you not put that there? Thanks."
Occam's razor says that that's the simplest solution should always be, or the simplest explanation is the explanation. I would not have a beer resting on my console as the simplest solution.
Do you have a little more separation from the crowd these days? Or?
Yeah.
Sometimes. This is a profit-driven business, so we're trying to cram as many humans into the room as we can.
And it wasn't like Nicole Kidman had her beer on the thing. No, it's just some random woman.
It's just a random human being.
Yeah. Human beings are the worst.
Ironic as she's like, let's see what you do for a living as I destroy what you do for a living.
Yeah.
She wanted to try it. She was just really bad at it.
Yeah.
I mean, in her defense, she had a couple beers in her.
Well, and a couple beers on the console.
These things
Yes.
happen.
This is why there's a whole Instagram account for drinks on consoles. I love it. It's hilarious.
There is?
Yeah.
Yep.
I learned that day that you put an aisle between the audience and you.
We've sold some things to customers because of drinks on console situations.
I guess one could say that the drinks on consoles might keep us in business, really.
It might. I mean, do we need to also sell sippy cups?
Yes.
That's
It's like, here's your replacement board and here's a sippy cup.
No, you should throw it in, man. It's a marketing tool.
Okay.
But again,
Little
that'll
ChurchGear logo on it.
Yeah.
I mean, we could do a meme with Blake drinking from the sippy cup because that's what he drinks from.
Well, you give it to
daily
somebody. If somebody calls you to buy something because they got water or a drink in their console, you give it to them as a consolation prize. On tour, if somebody came to work late,
Consolation
prize.
Oh, well played.
I like it. On tour, if you would lose your laminate sometimes, depending on the tour manager and how much fun you like to have with people, they'll give you like a giant one. That's, it's poster
To
size.
shame you.
To shame you into not losing your laminate ever again.
I'm in love with this story.
That's not something you do. And I mean, we had all sorts of jokes like that. We, if somebody came to work exceptionally late on one of the tours that my first company did, the crew chief would hand out Mickey Mouse gloves. And the Mickey Mouse gloves were just, because one of the biggest insults you can give to a crew guy is to tell him he's a white glover. Right.
Oh, okay. Why is that?
You're a white glover. You don't get dirty. You don't do any real work. So if you showed up late to
We
work
have one
on
of those
that
in
tour,
our company.
I
won't say his name.
Yeah, I was muting that joke, but I immediately knew
does
what he
it does
meant.
it start with a B and end with a K? Blake?
No. I'll get my hands
That's who
dirty.
I was thinking of.
I mean,
Don't throw somebody else under the bus. I mean, you're here, Blake, so we can constantly throw you under the
the
bus.
sacrificial lamb, but
Yes.
I better not compare myself any further than that to
That's
Jesus.
right.
So, I love all of those. I'm gonna ask you one more, Nathan, because honestly,
I've got one more too, so he gets 2 more.
Okay, yeah. I was just, maybe we can condense them down. I wanted at least one more fun things are going bad story that you're fixing.
Oh, okay.
I
had a different question, so go, Blake.
Oh, great. Yeah, and anytime I'm having dinner with Nate, I just love pulling these stories out. So
things are going bad stories?
yeah, things are going bad and you fix it. Like, I'm fascinated by how so many people in live sound have this just steel nerve about them that I think,
Duct tape solutions.
yeah, like it's so
Yes.
necessary for the job, even more than the know-how. It's the mental coolness in the heat of battle.
I think, yes. we for some reason don't have, like, we don't give up in live entertainment. There's this weird kind of, I will make this work.
Are you the Marines? Isn't that
It's so
No Man
weird.
Left Behind?
But yeah, for a group of people that you think would be the most relaxed, I do this because I don't want to work in a bank kind of crowd. You know, like, we're just here for the party, bro. They'd never stop, and our technicians are some of the most interesting people I've ever worked with. I was on a tour in 2006. One of the first things I did. Good friend of mine was the designer. I was a lighting technician. We had old Mac 2K spot fixtures, and we had disabled the pan tilt motors on them and put handles in the back, and we would use them as follow spots. So from an older console, you would do intensity on a fader, and then we'd give Nomex racing gloves to a spotlight operator who would hold this light right above the lamp and hopefully not burn his hands. And so we were at work, and one of these things just, I mean, they were starting to get a little old by the time we got them. So it was a budget fixture for a tour that we were trying to build on a budget, and it wasn't working. And I remember the support act was on stage, and I mean, it was a rock tour, right? Very loud rock tour. So the support act's on stage, and the show's going about 1,000 miles an hour. And I look up, and my best friend at the time on the tour is inverted from a truss. He's hanging upside down, and he's got this light completely taken apart on the truss, 30 feet above the audience and the performer, and he's just in there. I mean, it's cables and solder, and I mean, he's just full on bench teching a light upside down, inverted, to make this follow spot work, because there's 4 guys in the principal band. They're on next, and
it's like an astronaut.
Good Lord, we're gonna make this thing work. And he did. He completely got the entire thing working, got it put back together, and came down out of the ladder with, I think, maybe 5 minutes to spare. And after doing all of this technical work and not killing anybody with tools and all this other stuff 35 feet in the air, he gets to the bottom rung of the ladder, and he thinks he's going to be cool, because at this point, the house lights are back on. It's pre-show for the main act, and the entire audience is looking at him. And he's single, so he's like, hey, man, there's some girls in the audience. Let me try to look cool here. So he gets to the bottom rung, and he tries to jump off. And when he jumps off, when you're up in the truss, there's a safety cable that goes from you up into the ceiling. The safety cable catches on the truss ladder. And so when he jumps, he's maybe 4 feet off the ground, but the safety cable catches, his ankle catches. And after doing this incredible feat of, like, upside down technical engineering, he lands flat on his back on the stage. And the entire audience just goes completely silent. Just... And everybody, and then he just stands up, puts both hands in the air, and the crowd goes nuts. And I was like, okay, we can go to work now.
That's one of those salvaged moments.
Yeah, actually, it went badly for a time, but I think he ended that super well.
He did, man. He did. There's so many stories about.
Well, when we have you
breaking.
back on in 2 days, you can tell. I could go for these stories
for an hour.
The tech.
I could go for another hour.
Okay. So you've worked with a lot of famous people.
Mm-hmm.
What is just one of those moments you like? Because I'm sure you're doing shows, you're live events, but then sometimes you're just like in meetings or hangout times with famous people and their situations. So, like, what's a moment where you just had to look around and think to yourself, like, is this real? Am I actually here right now?
Okay, I'll give you 2 of those. I very, very early on in my career, I was designing a show, and we called them dry techs. It's basically an empty room with a show at one end, and you're just pushing the button, and the artist comes in and sits in front of you on a couch and goes, yeah, I like that. No, I don't like that. Yeah, I like that.
How big is this room?
It's half the size of an arena.
Okay, so they're actually watching.
They're watching their full production. Yeah.
Okay.
So I remember an artist kind of giving me a hug from behind and saying, I can hear your heart going 90 miles an hour from all the way over here, as he walked over from the couch. And that's when I was like, I do this for a living now. Like, I've struggled with imposter syndrome when I first started, right? Is this a job for me? Am I allowed to be in this chair? I was incredibly young for the job that I had. So I was like, they're going to find out any minute that I have no idea what I'm doing.
I mean, that's what we assume with Blake every day.
Nathan, don't tell them. It's pulling it off so far.
So when he came over and he's like, I can hear you going from here, buddy. You're doing great. That was one of those moments where I was like, okay, we do this for a living now. then let's go. Another one.
Well, can you tell us who this artist is?
It was Keith Urban.
Well, and I didn't want to
Keith
pressure
gave
you
you
to.
Keith Urban came up and he put his hand on my shoulder and kind of squeezed my shoulders and he was like, I can hear your heart going from here. This looks great. And I was building that show. I worked for a guy named Mark Brickman, and we were putting that show together in 2009. And
I bet that felt good in that
I was
moment.
like, okay, we can do this for a living. And it felt incredibly good. And I'll give you another one. In 2000 and I don't know, 14, 15, somewhere in there. We were putting on a benefit for Barry Manilow. And in December, there's a couple members of the crew that have birthdays. So he decided to throw a birthday party at his house. I've worked for him on and off for a few years and I hadn't been to the house yet. And so we go up into his place and, go up through the gate and you go up a little hill and, you're staring at, where his house is. It kind of faces over a valley and it's just gorgeous and stunning. And he kind of looks at me and he goes, you have an eye for this stuff. Let me give you a tour of the place.
And why not?
And that was another one of those moments where like I took that compliment from somebody who is very accomplished. I mean, you could shore up a small house with the number of Grammys this guy has. He's sold more records. I'm pretty sure he's given the Bible a run for its money on sales.
Don't tell Jesus.
Don't tell Jesus. So but he was like, yeah, let me show you around the place because you got an eye for design and you'll like it. And he gave me a tour of his house and it was stunning. Kind of a stunning spot to be in, and it's a gorgeous mid-century ranch that's just beautiful and well decorated and designed. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is. And then I had to come home and we come home and we hit the Burger King for lunch because
you need to come back down to reality.
Back to reality.
I'm that world adjacent. I don't live in that world. So came home, got in the car and drove myself home, and then had to walk the dog.
Real life came back in.
Real life comes back real hard when you come home from those trips.
Okay, so one more quick question before we do our tech takeaway with Blake.
Okay.
You've worked with some amazing artists, amazing names. Is there do you kind of fall asleep dreaming if this artist called tomorrow, that would be the coolest thing I could imagine?
Well, we already figured out it's Richard Simmons.
Yes.
Oh, Richard.
And I did confirm he's still alive.
If it wasn't
still
Richard
alive?
Simmons,
Dancing to the oldies.
even though he's still alive, but if it wasn't Richard Simmons.
If it wasn't.
We don't anymore. Seth and I have been blessed to work for guys that are just phenomenal at what they do. And we are, at this point, not in a place where we're trying to chase a dream artist or a dream performer. We love partnering with people who want to get creative and want to do things differently and are excited to kind of either reinvent something that they've done in the past or to just be weird and do something completely new.
It's Bette Midler, isn't it?
It is. I got to tell you.
This is a safe place.
I mean, she just does it for me, man.
Blake, do you know who Bette Midler is?
I don't.
Man, Blake.
I can't let my wife hear this podcast now because now I have to admit that I got a little thing for Bette Midler.
Man, well, hang on. You've been lighting for some churches too, right?
We designed the crossing at Chesterfield. We have a couple churches in development.
Do you want to give out your name and say if you want to have me consult on your church?
Yeah, we'd love to.
Okay.
We'd love to. So our office is called the Dark Room Creative, and you can find us.
I was about to call you Light
Google.
Room. I was like, nope, that's something else.
That's something completely
Your
different.
Dark Room.
Yes.
What's your website?
thedarkroomcreative.com.
Nice.
We're based in Middle Tennessee, and we go anywhere and do anything.
Man, that's a good tagline. We go anywhere and do anything. Well, all right, Nathan, I'm going to put you on the spot one last time. This is the end of our show where we do the tech takeaway. So essentially, everyone knows best practices. Techs are, they got their checklist. They're going through it. What's something that is not on that list that you've picked up in your time of man, this is something that it's kind of weird. It's kind of out there, but I do it every time. Or if I need it, I use it. And man, it just makes everything work.
Tech takeaways from Nate.
And it doesn't even have to be, I'm going to keep vamping a little bit. It doesn't have to be super technical. It's not
It could be a philosophical thing.
A lot of them end up
like,
being that.
As these young kids are thinking, dreaming of a life in tech,
I'll give you one for each. On the technical side of life, 2 is 1, 1 is none. Always have a spare for everything because something will break. And you'd never want to be that guy who is looking at a tour manager or a production manager, or in our boat, once you hit, kind of the creative designer side of life, you don't want to be the guy standing in front of an artist saying, I'm sorry, this thing that you paid for is broken and we don't have anything to fix it.
Now, didn't your spare Grand MA actually get you into trouble?
It did. But okay. more often than not, my spare Grand MA saved me from trouble.
Okay.
And then on the philosophical side of life, there's no such thing as it can't be done. There's just, we haven't tried it yet.
Ooh, I like that.
Don't be the no guy. We work in a creative industry and all ideas are welcome, and just try it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But then at that point, you guys are on the same team and you guys are working together towards a solution as opposed to it being an adversarial relationship. So there's no such thing as it won't work. There's just, we haven't tried it yet.
I would imagine the courage to try a crazy idea is pretty foundational to your job and really all live production. Because the worship leader comes and says, let's try this. And you're like, well, we've never done that. Well, hey, maybe it's awesome. And so, and you even more so, you've got these artists where they say, make my attic come back from my childhood. And you're like, I guess I will.
I guess I'll figure out how to light that up. Yeah.
You ever feel like a genie in a bottle in those moments?
No.
You're just granting wishes?
Well, I mean, we're taught early on in our career that you don't say no to people. So it's kind of a natural progression of that, to take that you do to the person who pays you and then just apply it to everybody else.
Nathan, I say no to Blake every single day.
You have to.
I have to.
You can't feed that demon.
Man, I was going to say, wait a minute. Let's track, bring this principle back to our company.
Yeah. What is one thing you should never say no to, though?
White cheddar popcorn.
Good coffee.
Oh, hang on.
I teed you up, Blake. It was so easy.
Well, if you're teeing me up from our bumper ad, that's at the end, post-outro music, structurally.
We haven't hit the outro music yet?
We haven't hit the outro music yet. We got to say bye to Nathan. Nathan, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We never say bye to Nathan.
Well,
but I guess for this episode.
I'd literally have him on my calendar to see him and Karen, so I was like, all right, don't make ask any questions. I'll make
Maybe
Nathan
we should
mad.
have Karen on the podcast next time to give us like the real insider information about Nathan.
Well, you could get the spousal perspective of someone who's married to a tour
guy.
That's a lot.
All right, Blake, now that you understand where I'm going with this, what is one thing you should never say no to, or multiple things?
You should never say no to a ticket to the early service.
Do you need a ticket?
You need at least something. You need a pop-up ad on the website. You grab it, you go to it, and boom, there you are. You're at this magical page called the early service.
What does the early service get you?
The early service, there's not much it can't get you, quite honestly. It's the best gear in the world. It's warranted. It's most of the time not even in production because of supply chain issues. And suddenly all of that great gear comes to your inbox on Monday morning.
And there's no beer cans sitting on it.
You know, if there were, it's been cleaned off. But yeah, I can say with confidence, there's never been a beer can on any of our early service items. So make sure you sign up for that at churchgearearlyservice.com and get the best stuff to your inbox.
Thanks for listening. And hey, congratulations on surviving Sunday. If you happen to make it through next Sunday as well, join us again for your weekly Tech Breather.